He didn't just survive. He privatized the waterhole and charged lions rent for shade. Welcome to the African Savanna. Population, prey, predators, and one very, very special honey badger. Today, we tell the story of a creature who rewrote the laws of nature, not with force, not with claws, with negotiation. The savanna had seen a lot of births. Wildebeest, zebra, the occasional confused flamingo, but nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared it for what happened on a warm Tuesday morning. Somewhere in the tall grass of the East African plains, a honey badger was born, white on top, black on the bottom, and already, somehow, impossibly, sporting a spectacular blonde comb-over. The hair was perfect, not one strand out of place. In a birthing den, in the dust, in the dirt. His mother, a battle-hardened honey badger who had once stared down a black mamba and charged interest to neighboring badgers, looked down at her newborn and said, "This one is different." He was different, all right. Within the first hour of his life, he had rejected his mother's milk because it wasn't premium enough, negotiated a better burrow location from a nearby mongoose, and bitten a scorpion. Not because he was threatened, because the scorpion had looked at him wrong. The scorpion's nest, as it turned out, was enormous, full of protein, full of opportunity. This, he decided, was his small loan. 1,000,000 scorpions. And from this moment, he would build an empire. His name whispered across the savanna in a mixture of fear, disbelief, and grudging respect. T-Badger. The press would later call him reckless. The hyenas would call him dangerous. The lions would call him problematic. He called himself a winner.
Every great empire needs labor, and T-Badger understood labor better than any creature in the savannah. The meerkats were sophisticated, excellent lookouts, highly organized, famously anxious, and, critically, very, very cheap. One morning, T-Badger waddled into their territory, the red tie gleaming against the golden grass, the hair immaculate. He didn't rush. Only losers rush. He looked around, he assessed, and he announced a merger. You stand on your hind legs all day watching the horizon. That's surveillance. I need surveillance. I'll give you burrow access, scorpion dividends, and my personal protection. What kind of protection? The chief sentinel asked, compulsively scanning the horizon. The kind, T-Badger said, that you only need because I'm here. The negotiation lasted 45 minutes, a record for any collective bargaining agreement in East Africa. The meerkats accepted. The Meerkat Union was now officially the T-Badger Sentinel Network, a fully integrated, low-overhead, high-efficiency early warning system. They simply directed all alerts exclusively toward T-Badger's interests. It was, by any measure, a beautiful deal, especially for T-Badger. Spring came to the savanna, and with it, the wildebeest migration. Millions of them, enormous, dusty, thundering across the plains, consuming grass, occupying prime grazing territory without so much as a permit or a property disclosure form. T-Badger watched them from a termite mound, the tiny red tie flapping in the breeze, the hair, as always, perfect. Even in the dust of the Great Migration, not a single strand dared fall out of place. And he said the 5 words that would define his legacy. They're not sending their best wildebeest. The reaction was immediate. The zebras were outraged. The elephants called for dialogue. The vultures waited patiently, as always. But T-Badger had already begun construction. Like the host of a business conference, first order of business, contractor selection. T-Badger announced an open tender for the construction of the Great Wall. There were 3 bidders. The elephants offered solid construction, but submitted an invoice for 10,000 bananas. The buffalo promised speed, but demanded payment up front. And then, the warthogs. The warthogs quoted 12 times less than the elephants, agreed to payment in installments via acorn futures, and, crucially, already owned their own tusks, meaning the tooling was included in the price. The perfect subcontractor, said T-Badger. Cheap, efficient, and they don't ask questions about the union. The dung beetles were trickier. They worked 1 shift per day and were requesting days off.
Days off in the Savannah during the construction project of the century. T-Badger called a general assembly of the Beatles and announced the introduction of an options program. Any Beatle working 2 consecutive shifts would receive rights to a share of future manure deliveries from the holding company. This was called the Workforce Value Participation Program. None of the Beatles understood what an option was, but all of them agreed to work double shifts. Construction moved 3 times faster, and then they showed up, the flamingo ecologists. Pink, slow, carrying handmade signs made from leaves. The wall disrupts the ecological balance. The wall is ecocide. T-Badger looked at them for a long time. Then he straightened his tie. Fired. Too pink, too slow, completely inefficient. This is a high-speed construction project, not a flamingo beauty pageant. One particularly principled flamingo stood on one leg and continued holding the sign for 20 minutes after everyone else had left. He was respected. But the wall went up anyway. The wildebeest are going to pay for it, believe me. The wildebeest did not pay, but the wall became the greatest structure in the history of the Savannah. Nobody could prove otherwise.
Power attracts opposition. This is a law of nature. The hyenas ran the Carcass Chronicle. One particularly bold hyena published a lengthy expose, The Comb-Over and the Con, Inside T-Badger's Empire. Fake news! Total fake news! Sad hyenas! Very dishonest! Everybody knows it! T-Badger didn't watch nature documentaries, so he called the alpha male low-energy Leo, a large maned lion who spent most of his day lying in the shade, yawning with the air of someone who had been tired of everything since last season. Leo roared. T-Badger walked toward the roar, in his tie, with his perfect hair, directly toward the lion's open mouth. A honey badger walking toward a lion's roar is, scientifically speaking, the most irrational thing any small mammal can do. The lion blinked first. But before convening the final summit, T-Badger needed to do what any self-respecting asset owner must do: conduct an audit. Seriously, like a financial analyst. First to be examined, the zebras. T-Badger walked through the herd with the methodical air of an accountant. Then he stopped, narrowed his eyes, and delivered his verdict. Too much black, not enough white, non-transparent reporting. He declared that every stripe on a zebra was a concealed tax asset, deliberately camouflaged as a natural pattern. The zebras received a formal notice, report for tax inspection, and explain the origin of each stripe. The eldest zebra tried to argue that the stripes were evolution. T-Badger replied that evolution was not a legal defense against tax avoidance. Next, the lions. T-Badger conducted a time and motion study on the pride's working day. The results were not encouraging. 20 hours of sleep per day, 4 hours of activity, 3 of which are yawning. That is negative return on feed invested. Your efficiency rating is below the baseline. You are an underperforming asset in my portfolio. Therefore, effective immediately, a shade tax is introduced. Every square meter of acacia occupied by a sleeping lion during daylight hours will be charged at the standard rate. Either you hunt in the interests of the holding company and contribute to the collective fund, or you vacate the shade. Leo tried to say something, but that would have required effort. And so the Savannah acquired its first tax on sleep. Some called it tyranny. T-Badger called it operational cost optimization. There comes a moment in every great leader's story when they must face the ultimate negotiation, the deal that defines everything. The Grand Savannah Summit, called by the elephants. Last-ditch attempt to restore order to an ecosystem that had taken on an increasingly T-Badger-shaped appearance. Present, the lions, still visibly shaken. The hyenas, furiously taking notes. The meerkats, standing at attention. 3 uninvited giraffes who could see over the wall and just showed up. And one very small, very confident honey badger in a bright red tie at the head of a table he had personally arranged. Seriously, officially. The elephants opened with a statement about the importance of the laws of the jungle, ancient agreements about migration rights, water access, territorial boundaries. T-Badger listened.
He let them finish. Then he slid a single document across the table. New Deal. 43 pages. The waterhole renamed the T-Badger Aquatic Excellence Center. Migration schedule restructured. T-Badger's Burrow, official diplomatic headquarters. And page 43, a one-line rider transferring the naming rights of Mount Kilimanjaro. Effective immediately. The mountain would henceforth be known as Trump Peak. It's taller now, T-Badger explained. Just by being associated with me, it's taller. This is a fact. Nobody checked. The summit lasted 6 hours. T-Badger got everything he asked for. No election had been held. No vote had been cast. The democratically unelected king of the Savannah stood atop his termite mound. The meerkats stood at attention. The hyenas wrote furiously. The lions lay in the shade, staring at nothing. And somewhere on the horizon, against the fading orange sky, the silhouette of Trump Peak rose unmistakably above the clouds. T-Badger straightened his tie. Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Listen, you watched all the way to the end. That means you're not prey. You're not a predator. You're an investor. And right now, I'm offering you the best deal of this quarter, a subscription to Probable AI. No upfront cost, no lawyers, no hidden fees. One click and you get access to content that no other channel on this planet is making. Leo didn't subscribe. The hyenas took too long to think about it. The flamingos were busy protesting. The zebras are still under tax investigation. Don't make their mistake. T-Badger approves this message. And if you listened all the way to the end, make sure you hit that like button.